Welcome back to the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Landon.
Good day.
What's new this week, man?
It's been a fun week. It's been a fun week to think about our topic tonight. I'm kind of overly dressed for those that are watching. I had gone.
Yeah, you just froze up.
And yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's my Friday. What's your Friday night, Aaron?
You froze up there.
Oh, am I now unfrozen?
Well, yeah, now you are. So
I don't know what to say.
Say what you said again.
I was saying that it's Friday night when we're recording this podcast, which will air later. But it was my daughter was singing in a little concert, so that's why I'm a little overly dressed for those who can see. What did you do, Aaron? What did you do on your Friday night?
Nothing. That's how I spend my Fridays. It's been a long week. I had a root canal on Tuesday, and that did not go well. I was expecting, and from everything I've read and heard about root canals these days, they are no more traumatic than getting a regular cavity filled.
And yet you seem to have endured the trauma.
They found a way to turn it into a modern torture device for me somehow. Apparently, I've got several things.
Something mean to the people before they put you under, did they?
They didn't put me under. The Novocaine or lidocaine, whatever it is they inject you with to numb everything, didn't work. It didn't work. So it hurt a lot.
Was it like maybe giving a baby from your mouth?
No, it was like someone exposed a nerve and then kept touching it with a drill repeatedly.
There's been a few times you and I've disagreed where I visualized something like that happening, but yeah, I'm sorry to see it come to fruition.
No, you're not. All right. So this week will be one of those episodes where we turn the conversation away from movies for a bit. We are going to let our geek flags fly as we get into the 1993 DC Comics storyline, Batman Knightfall. General thoughts. Lieutenant thoughts? Oh, you've got it right there.
For those who can see, I have a copy of a Batman Knightfall. Well, this is
a hard copy.
Like
print media's going to whatever.
Yeah, I know. I got, general thoughts for me. This is just coming off of the Death of Superman comic storyline. This is right after that, and we've talked before about kind of the context as to why these things were happening. We can kind of go into that a little bit more in a minute, but honestly, I've kind of debated over which one has been my favorite between the two, and I have to say, I think that this one I've always liked the most. And the reason why is because there's so many different elements of characters. There's so many different things going on. It's not just that, like with Superman, you had the 4 Supermen that kind of came up in the Reign of Superman part. This had to do with like the Jean-Paul Valley. You had the Azrael character. You had, the 2 Robins, or Nightwing and Robin, and then just all of these elements, Arkham, and all of the prison breakout. There's just so much going on. And while you have the action going on, you're also dealing with, the mantle of Batman and who he was, and just getting his focus and quest, exhausting himself, not taking the advice to rely on people around you, to step back, to calm down. And then the results of that, I mean, there's just so much emotion and identity involved in this one. I have to say, I think it's my favorite. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, if we're comparing it to Death of Superman, I still like Death of Superman better, but that's just because I've always liked Superman better. Now, when we were kids, you were getting these as they were coming out, right? You were getting the individual issues, like, because I wasn't doing so. At that point, it would be rare for me to get anything outside of the Superman um collection. So I think the only reason I got an issue of Green Lantern during the reign of the Superman was because there was a tie-in issue
Sure.
that had Hal Jordan coming back to Coast City and fighting Mongol.
Yeah.
But other than that, if it didn't tie directly into a Superman storyline at that point in time, and in that I guess era of my collecting comics, I didn't spend money on it. But I can't remember if I read this storyline because like I came over to your house and I would look through your back issues, or if I may not have really read through like from start to finish the Knightfall storyline um till it was collected in paperback or a graphic novel
We
form.
definitely talked about it. I mean, we talked about it a lot between these two when we were
I'm
hanging out.
sure I had enough information about it to know like what the story was and what was going on at the time. I remember you being like, you were a huge fan of Azrael, like
Very.
when we were kids.
I
Like,
can't
so
believe you
like
remember that.
when he eventually gets his own series,
Yep.
you had almost all of those, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, I did. They ended up having 100 issues of Azrael. Now we're not talking about Sword of Azrael that preceded all of this.
Yeah, that
We're
was the
talking about
miniseries that introduced him.
right. We're talking about Azrael when he got his own comic line after he had, stepped down. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that, especially because I was in a phase where I would draw the comics. I would have a comic book to my left. I would have a blank sheet of paper on my right, and I would basically visually trace and draw these. And he was one of my favorite ones to draw. And so no artistic skill on my side, but just I loved the artwork. But the storyline was good too. This is and we kind of go into some details with the history of this. There's a lot of history that leads up. But yeah, I really like that a lot. If there's anything, let me ask you this: if there's anything that really resonates about this story arc for you, a theme, a character, or just a situation, or just something. I mean, is there anything that kind of stands out for you, Aaron?
Uh, well, let me say this. So, just because at the time, and even now, looking back, enjoy that Death of Superman storyline more than Knightfall, doesn't mean I think that this is not a good story, and is absolutely compelling in its own right. I was reading about it. The Batman writers did kind of the same thing that the Superman writers did. They would have like a summit where they would get together and plan out the storylines. Well, this was like they were building to this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And they had no idea that the guys over at Superman were talking about killing him off. And
Yeah.
so, what they, later came out and said, I think Dennis O'Neil, who was one of the big writers on Batman, said, if they had known then about Superman, they probably would have put this off for another year or so, because there was so much happening in the larger DC universe.
Yeah.
That, when it came down to wrapping up the storyline, not Knightfall and not Night Quest, but with Night's End, it feels rushed when you get to the end of it.
It does.
Because they had to line up with the rest of the DC universe, because suddenly we're in 0 hour.
Yeah, 0 hour is what the end of it was. Absolutely. Well, and you had, there was definitely a lot of time spent on the lead up to it, in a great way. But you're right, coming towards the end of it, everything had to culminate. And now, that being said, though, the death of Superman had a great bearing on this. There was a few things that had a great bearing on this story arc.
Oh, sure.
First of all, you have Jason Todd, being killed by the Joker.
Yeah, Batman. So that's an event. Sure, it happened. So this is 1993, and Jason Todd was killed in 89.
Yeah, it was in the 80s. I can't remember when exactly.
And
Right.
and so and time is such a fickle thing in comic book
and in life
stories. I mean, you look at Superman and Lois Lane were engaged to be married for literally like 7 years.
He has commitment issues,
but to them it was like months. And so you've got where they restructure the timeline every few years. Then they'll say, all right, all these stories that have happened for the past 30 years, compress those into really what's like the past 5 years for these characters.
Yeah.
And so really it's hard to tell how long it had been since Joker killed Jason Todd, the second Robin.
Still extremely impacting.
But it's right. It is still something that that Bruce blames himself for, and he is still grieving over that loss.
Yeah,
and rightfully so. This was like another adopted son for him.
Right.
And so you've got that going on. Apparently in the story, he had recently been sick, which was why he had been seeing Dr. Chandra Kinsolving.
Yeah.
And so, that was a romantic relationship that was developing as she was treating him, and
patients falling in love with their doctor.
The whole Florence Nightingale thing. And then, with that, you've got the introduction of these new characters. You got Jean-Paul Valley
and
Azrael.
Yeah.
Who is he's a grad student, I think.
Yeah, he was a grad student, and he unknowingly had been trained since he was born to be an assassin for this religious order that followed Saint Dumas. And this, and when I say unknowingly, it means that they would put him
it was all unconscious, like this
order that he would be flipped to. It was like is flipping a switch, and he would do this
like a sleeper agent.
Yeah, exactly. And so he had this kind of training, and Batman and him connected, and Batman worked with him and used him to be able to kind of help out in the city. But while this is happening, you're having some challenges too, because you have, of course, Dick Grayson as Nightwing out there.
Yeah, and he's separated himself and basically is his own person now. He's
his
out of the shadow of the Bat.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And then you have, Tim Drake, who is now the Robin there as well. And so while this is going on, and Batman is facing all of, his normal crime fighting and all that, he's working with Jean-Paul Valley, to kind of help out in crime fighting. He kind of lacks some detective skills. He's just, kind of green in that respect. But
he's got Tim trying to train him a little bit.
Trying to train him
to get him more of those detective skills, and to kind of pull him away from the brainwashing that he had experienced his entire life.
Exactly. Grooming him into the ways, right?
But didn't really take.
No, it didn't really work out. But, then you have this Bane character that comes out, who is from South America, and
Central America.
Sorry.
Island nation. And he was born in prison, involuntarily experimented on with the Venom super steroid.
Yep.
So he's addicted to it, but it also gives him incredible strength and intelligence.
And he comes out and he thinks that Batman is the king of Gotham, and he wants to, throw him down. But he doesn't start off just trying to throw down Batman. He recognizes that if he fights Batman, he would lose. And so his plan is to weaken Batman. And he does so quite effectively by doing a breakout of Arkham Asylum of all the big baddies and all the little baddies too.
Well, they all get out. It is like when it comes to a villain, deciding to take on this unbeatable, unstoppable force that Batman is, It's pretty brilliant the way that
It
he
was.
does it. Like it's not just about weakening Batman. It's also about learning everything there is to know about him,
Including his identity.
including his identity. He is able
Yeah,
to easily deduce that
easily. Yeah.
Batman is Bruce Wayne. And so yeah, like prior to Knightfall beginning, there are a few instances of him interfering in Gotham. He has a fight with Killer Croc, breaking both of Croc's arms.
Yeah.
He has venom injected into the Riddler,
Yep.
so the Riddler becomes a physical threat,
Yeah.
on top of already being an intellectual threat.
Yep.
And then and this is all again culminating at a time when Bruce Wayne is not at his A game. He's
Yeah.
ill or has been dealing with
And
illness.
emotionally ill as well. He's having a midlife crisis is really
Yeah,
what's happening.
yeah.
And the fact is that when people think about Bane, they think, oh, the guy who broke Batman's back. And that's true.
But he
But
broke
at the
Batman's
same time,
spirit.
yeah, there was so much more that went in to wearing him down. He came in at a time when Batman was already facing some personal emotional toil. And so he wears him down, and this whole Arkham thing, while the Arkham thing's going on, where Arkham was breached, and you have Joker taking over that, and you have all of these big bads that are just having to be dealt with. Well, this is the time here now where Jean Paul Valley is being used again to get involved, right? You have, then you also have Tim, Drake with and the Mantle of Robin and Nightwing, and they're all just engaging. But the problem is Batman is not necessarily entrusting any of his people really to really help him.
No,
He is
he's
trying to
he
do
pulls
this
away.
on his own, as he always has. And I just from a fast forward perspective here, all of this culminates right now in the comic books. There's a Bat family where there's a whole bunch of, there's Batwoman, there's Batgirl, there's all of these, different players that are involved now, because this story arc leads the way, even all these years later, towards the understanding that you can't do it alone.
Well, and I think this was kind of getting him back to a Bat family. Like there had been a Batman family, since the introduction of Robin back in the 30s. Like so I mean, there was a Batwoman way back in the day. There was a Batgirl before the Batgirl we know.
Yeah.
There have always been allies that Batman has had, and I mean, there was even for a while a comic title called the Batman Family, and this is just another example of I don't know if it's like a post-crisis on Infinite Earth thing where we got to they shake up the status quo of
Yeah,
who
we
Batman
get a
is.
reset. Yeah.
And so you get to this point where Bruce Wayne, yes, he has Robin, yes, he's dealing with the death of Jason Todd, and he's got a third Robin now, but at the same time, he is keeping his new Robin at arm's length because he doesn't want another death on his conscience.
Right.
And so yeah, he's gonna try to push everyone as far away from it as he can. Now, you mentioned Nightwing. Nightwing really doesn't show up until the end of the Knightfall
Yeah.
arc. He's completely gone, and in fact, not to jump too far ahead, but when he does show up, he's a little disappointed that he
That he
wasn't
wasn't asked.
asked
Yeah.
to take on the mantle
I
of
think that's
Batman.
revealed later, that he says later, that he kind of wished he had been asked. I also forgot to mention that Black Mask is a name, that's been in the comics for some time. And prior to Batman being in this situation with Bane, he had been kind of battling against Black Mask, and that was a huge factor as well. But I think the Arkham situation is what really really was the last straw. And so all this culminates to Bane showing up at Wayne Manor, and they duke it out. And of course, Bane breaks his back in a famous scene, that famous look, that you have on that cover that I'm showing here, where he breaks his back. And from there, we're now it's a matter of now what are we going to do? He thinks he's out and he's done. He's got a broken back, obviously. So what are you going to do? And he asks Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael, to take on the mantle of being Batman.
Because he thinks he's ready for it.
And he thinks he's ready. And that is the real story arc. Bane is absolutely an essential element to the Knightfall. If you're talking about Knightfall, including Night Quest, including, if we're saying that's what this whole thing is, he's essential because he did that, wearing him down and broke his back and got him in the situation. But this story is a lot about what happens after that.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
If you take a look at the point where Bane breaks Batman's back, you're only halfway through the Knightfall storyline.
Yeah.
So it culminates in Batman number 500, but Batman's broken in number 497, 3 issues earlier.
Yeah.
And so you've got 3 more issues of Batman plus 3 more issues of Detective Comics, a couple of issues of Showcase to get through before you even get to the point where the new Batman reveals himself as we come to know him throughout the next year of comics.
Yeah, and this new look, this new Batman doesn't start off with the one that we see with the claws, Jean-Paul Valley with the metal suit. No, it doesn't happen like that right away. No, he's got the regular Batman suit. You remember that one cover where he's got the really long ears?
Oh, so many of those covers had Batman with the long ears.
Yeah, but super long ears, and he was being very violent. And that became obviously the problem here, is that Jean-Paul Valley was very violent and he wasn't listening to Tim, and that caused a challenge and a rift. And ultimately, Bruce Wayne ends up stepping out of the country because Chandra, this love interest of his, gets abducted and taken away into this whole other story arc, which was good to have,
along with and
Alfred,
Tim's dad.
That's right. Him and Alfred go over, right?
Yeah, Bruce and Alfred leave. They find a connection between the abductors and Bane and Santa Prisca.
Yeah, and it's completely, you have a connection there, but the truth is it ends up being its own, a completely separate arc that's essential because it's how Batman or Bruce Wayne gets, his body healed. So you got to have a path to that. So that's still essential, but it kind of gives room for Jean-Paul Valley to go crazy.
Yeah. He has nobody to keep him in check.
Nobody keep him in check. And he really looked up to Bruce. You got that feel and vibe of that respect in his early encounters.
Yeah.
But man,
there's a scene there just before Alfred and Bruce leave. They're in the Batcave, and Bruce basically tells Jean-Paul, the cave is yours now. And so that's all right, I'm moving in. This is my cave. I'm Batman now. I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it.
But it's still, he was humble. I have to say, my perspective of Jean-Paul Valley, you just didn't really, he was very respectful of Bruce. But man, that, his history, his past creeping up on him, ultimately what put him over the edge was the Scarecrow. When the Scarecrow injects him with that serum, that fear serum, his body basically reacts by turning on that subconscious training that he had gotten from the Order of Saint Dumas.
Is that in the God of Fear story arc?
I think so. Yeah, but it's the one. It's
Shadow
the
of the
one
Bat.
he fought Scarecrow. But that's what happened. His body turned on that training, and then you couldn't turn it off.
Yeah.
And so then he started getting messed up about a lot of things. He started misunderstanding, like he had bad detective skills, right? We already knew that. So he starts having a misunderstanding about what Catwoman's doing, about her intentions with things. He thinks that she's trying to neuro poison people and kill people like she's some arch villain when she's not. He starts getting confused about the mobster that killed his father. And he actually misunderstands that the replacement of the mobster, he thinks that that's the guy that killed his father because he's getting all wacky and confused. And he's just constantly fighting and hurting and just really dangerously almost killing people, throughout the story arc. And of course, Tim along the side here from Robin is going like, dude, what are you doing?
Well, see, so now you're getting into some of the Night Quest stuff.
Yeah.
Which obviously we should get into because it's all part of the story. But so just to round up Knightfall, though, it culminates there in Jean-Paul going after Bane, which Bruce told him not to do.
Yeah, he told him not to do it. He said, stay away from him.
So I mean, on the one hand, you're saying he really respected Bruce, but on the other hand, I mean, he's going against Bruce's wishes. And like, again, this is where I say he is taking over the role of Batman. He has at this point, and maybe it's his psyche that's broken, that has convinced him that, now that I'm Batman, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah. And you get these little things that he says when Tim is talking to him that are kind of edging towards that. Well, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? And I think you were right. What you said before is without being in check, without having Bruce there, I think that he just kind of went forward.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like he had free reign to just do whatever he wanted. And again, it's not necessarily the fault of a conscious Jean-Paul Valley. It's this sleeper agent that he has been trained to be his entire life. And somehow that persona mixes with his idea of what Batman should be. And so, from there, he begins to become more violent. But what happens at the end of, like I said, the climax is Batman number 500. And he finally goads Bane into, a final fight and easily takes Bane down, but he doesn't kill him. And Robin witnesses this and kind of sees that, all right, maybe Bruce made the right call. Well, but that doesn't last long.
but I should also say, because as much as Jean-Paul Valley was, mentally devolving, here, man, that suit was awesome. He comes up with this mechanical suit that's just got this great, awesome look to it.
It's very 90s.
Oh my gosh. Well, you remember you and I talked about in our Robin episode about the Robin 2 or Robin what's the one that was it Tim Drake's Robin?
With the stylized R and the bow staff.
Oh my gosh. This was the time. And that the look that he has for that look, and I'm looking at the cover right here, but it's such a cool look. And he takes Bane down and sends him he saves him. He doesn't kill him. He sends him to Blackgate prison.
Yeah, he tells him you're broken, and now the pieces are going to rot in Blackgate. Yeah.
One of the things to understand, though, is while this is happening, he puts bystanders at risk, right? I mean, he has no thought like the regular Batman would have of civilian casualties. He just wants to put the guy down.
There's no such thing as worrying about collateral damage with this guy.
No.
His whole, MO is just stop the bad guys at any cost. And
right. And then from there you move into
okay with that or get out of the way.
Yeah, and you move into the Night Quest after this, and you've got two paths. You've got Night Quest Crusade, which is naturally the Jean-Paul Valley arc, and then you've got Night Quest The Search, which is the one where Bruce and Alfred are going and trying to find Chandra and work that out.
So they didn't number any of these storylines. Like it was just the Crusade was just this ongoing thing because they wanted it to be. They wanted us, the readers, to believe that this is the new status quo.
Right.
Like they
That
wanted
this is
us
the new Batman.
to wonder when or if Bruce Wayne would ever return to the role of Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so I mean, you look back, it's like, of course Superman's going to come back to life. Of course Bruce Wayne is going to be Batman.
But at the time, we were
but
like,
at the time, you're like,
we didn't know.
Batman's a regular guy. Bruce Wayne is a regular guy, and his back is broken. He is paralyzed from the waist down. There's no way he's going to be Batman again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think sometimes too, obviously in our culture today with movies and stuff, we see this stuff happen all the time. People come back. Nobody's really dead until you see them dead. And even then they may not be dead because so much has been overdone. But this was the 90s. You know what I mean? So this was happening, and you're right. You're thinking, I don't know how this is going to work out.
Yeah.
It was epic. It was an epic feel, while it's going on. But anyway, so, you have this going on where you have different storylines. I found elements of Night Quest to be boring, to be honest with you, as I read them, because again, the ongoing plot of watching Jean-Paul Valley devolve and all that stuff was a bit redundant. I enjoyed the search a bit, more maybe, just because I like to see how that was going. But
I think the search is, as far as the storytelling goes, it makes more sense that it's more enjoyable because it has an end game in mind.
Right.
Like there is a purpose to the search side of Night Quest. Whereas, again, with the Crusade, the writers are wanting us to believe that this is it. This is the new status quo. So, we're following this new Batman's adventures,
right,
for, the foreseeable future. We have no reason to believe that Bruce Wayne is ever coming back.
I mean, but there were some enjoyable moments, like Joker being like, this isn't the guy. Because remember, he's wearing the suit and nobody knows who Batman really is. And so there's some people, especially like Commissioner Gordon and the Joker, especially, who are just like, this isn't the guy. I don't know who this is, but this isn't the guy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So Jean-Paul encounters like a whole bunch of Batman's rogues gallery during his tenure as Batman, but to a Catwoman and the Joker, neither one of them.
Catwoman too, yeah.
Yeah, they are fully convinced that this is not the Batman that they're used to dealing with.
Right.
This new attitude, that this new Batman is putting on, it puts a strain on his relationship with Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of distrust that develops there, and it takes a long time. Once Bruce comes back to the role, for that trust to redevelop.
Yeah, it's true.
Because again, they don't know that this is a different Batman. They just see a guy in the bat suit, and you wore that weird suit for a while, but does this mean that you're back to normal? I can't trust this.
Yeah. Well, so the search arc kind of ends. It's it's a simple arc. It's basically Chandra's brother's a bad guy, and you know what I mean. And they got telekinetic battles going on and all that. And the way Bruce gets his back healed is kind of it all fits in a nice bow, right? So they have this battle out, and then while they're facing each other and having this battle, just basically this telekinetic power heals Bruce's back. So, when you say it like that, very simple, it sounds kind of silly. And it was, but you had to have it all work out, so he gets his back healed. But Alfred's like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
And Bruce is like, yeah, I can't be done. I need to go back. And Alfred's like, yeah, I'm not coming with you, and then that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Alfred's done watching Bruce slowly kill himself.
Right.
And who can blame him? I mean, this is the guy who raised Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
He's known him since he was born, and he is, for all intents and purposes, his surrogate father. And so, at some point he's got to step back and be like, all right, I can't watch you continue to do this to yourself after you've just been through the worst of what you've put yourself through in your entire life.
Right.
And now you're ready to jump back in just because you're healed now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
gonna stay here in England.
like Michael Caine did, in Dark Knight Rises, for any of you that watched that, this idea of he just breaks his heart watching him do this to himself. But, I mean, and obviously he comes back at some point. But what interested me is when Bruce Wayne comes back to the States, I thought it was very interesting that he comes back and, Tim Drake is kind of telling him about what's going on, because Tim Drake's freaked out, right? He's just like, this guy's out of his mind. And initially, Bruce is like, well, if it works, it's kind of like it's okay with it, until he tells him about causing the death of that mobster. And then Bruce is like, yeah, no, that kind of breaks the code.
Yeah, it wasn't even just the villain was is it Abattoir?
Yeah. Not a mobster. It was the I can't remember who they were.
Abattoir was the bad guy, but he had a hostage, and allowing Abattoir to die.
And he didn't kill him. He just allowed him.
He just allowed him to die. But then the hostage wound up dying as well, because you let Abattoir die. So now we have no idea where the hostage. We can't take care of that. So the hostage died too. So that means an innocent person died. Which it's bad enough that he allowed one of the bad guys die.
Right.
But to allow an innocent civilian to die as well.
Yeah.
So
that's a deal breaker.
Wayne steps back in and
you're out.
All right, time to hang it up, Jean-Paul.
Of course, Jean-Paul is like, yeah, I don't think so.
No, I'm Batman now.
Yeah, get out of my cave. So, at that point, then Bruce realizes he's got to get trained. Now, I got to say, that story arc of him getting trained was pretty awesome. I thought that was a really cool thing that he goes off and does. There's this girl,
Lady Shiva, right?
Shiva. Yeah, Lady Shiva. Yeah, and he goes and learns all the secret arts of fighting again and training himself and all that stuff. And the real test at the end reminds me a lot of Batman, Batman Begins. Do you remember when Ducard or Ra's al Ghul basically says to him that your last test is you need to kill this guy, right? And he won't do it. And so too in this way. The only difference is Bruce fakes it, right? He fakes the special move that makes it look like he's killed. And so the Lady Shiva's like, you've arrived, and then, but he really didn't kill the guy. He later confesses. He doesn't tell her that. She finds out later, but he basically didn't kill the guy. But
it's crazy. She is she's known as one of the most deadly assassins in the DC universe. So to have her train Batman, one of the worst bad guys training one of the best good guys. It's crazy.
Does the trick, but he gets all trained up. He's better than ever, really. And while this is going on, again, like we talked about before, Azrael or Jean-Paul Valley has been fighting different villains and stuff, and he fights the Scarecrow, and Scarecrow infects him with the villain or the venom or whatever it's called, the scared stuff, and that triggers him, and he cannot get this stuff out of his head. He starts breaking down psychologically. He starts you see him devolving in the comics, and that's really important because it's not some great beat down that stops him from becoming being Batman anymore. It's not some, he gets beat up enough like we've had with everything else. It really is a matter of wits. It comes down to him and Bruce, coming together at the cave. Bruce leads him through passages that he knows from his childhood. He leads him through passages that requires Jean-Paul Valley to take off all of that gear that he has just had, all this different gear. And so he can finally fit through and face him. But by the time he faces him at the end and he comes out in the clearing, he just realizes he's nothing. He's broken.
Yeah.
It's not some great beatdown. And I love that. That's one
turns
of the best
turns
things
it back
I
over
love about it.
turns it back over to Bruce. You are Batman. You always have been.
Yeah, because he's emotionally broken. And I think that's the thing, because some people might find it anticlimactic that you get this big bad, this face off. You want to see, the mechanized Batman versus the newly reformed Batman. But the truth is, this is always the whole story arc between Bruce and Jean-Paul Valley is all about the mind. It's all about the perspective. And that's the battle of wits that wins out. Bruce has found himself. Bruce has come back and knows his mantle, and Jean-Paul Valley has broken down because his philosophy wasn't enough to sustain the mantle. And I love that. I love that, how that ends.
Yeah, I thought, it ends really well. Overall, like I said, it's a really good story, and it feels like it's I know that the Batman writers had no idea about the Death of Superman storyline, but it still feels like it had some of the same kind of story beats or structure anyway, where with Death of Superman, you had the Death of Superman, the Doomsday story, and then you had the funeral story, and then you had the reign of Superman
story.
Whereas here you had Knightfall, Night Quest, and then Night's End. Yeah. So it's almost like a trilogy of stories that make up one big story. And while I agree, I do agree that it ends well, still feels rushed at the end.
It does. I mean,
but again, there's nothing you can do about that, because DC as a whole, the universe was about to do a new Crisis with Zero Hour, and
they desperately needed to. I mean, they were in a spot where they absolutely needed a revamp with a full story arc for all comics. I mean, Zero Hour was great. I really enjoyed Zero Hour.
Oh yeah. They needed to clean up a lot of the mess that was left behind after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
That was it's like that was a great attempt, guys, to wipe away the multiverse and just have one universe and try to make it all clean and streamlined. But you've got some things that it's like you rebooted some things, but not everything. And so some things don't make sense.
Continuity, and all that.
Like, now, which version of the Legion of Superheroes are we dealing with now?
Yeah. So, I think there's a few things that last. So, of course, you have Bane comes back, and it has multiple.
Again and again.
He's constantly.
He's now a regular part of the Rogues
Gallery. A regular part of the story. Jean-Paul Valley ends up when he leaves, kind of becomes homeless. And then he picks up his own story arc with the Azrael comic book. And that was good. And in the end, he supposedly dies, and I say supposedly because nobody ever really fully dies. I'm sure he'll be back.
No one's ever really gone.
Someday. Yeah. So, and so he had his own story arc. And we see, there's evolutions of Tim Drake and Robin and all these things that happen. But this storyline overall was definitely this. I don't know. It was like something that really stands the test of time as being a memorable story. Much like, I mean, there's a few of these like throughout the story, or the Batman, but really Knightfall just kind of, I think really captures the quest of Batman and finding his identity for what he's doing. So
well. And looking back at it, like it's surprising to me that of all of the, I won't say the live action movies, but of all of the adaptations that we've seen in like animation, with the animated DC films that have come and gone over the years.
Why would
This
they
has
not
never
do
been
this?
adapted. And
It's never been done.
like it's never been adapted faithfully to this story. Now, in The Dark Knight Rises, yes, you had Bane, and his mission was to break Batman both mentally and physically.
But still, it was not.
But it was not
anywhere-
Knightfall.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I appreciate. So, when you think about the Justice League and trying to pull Doomsday into it, definitely didn't like that. I really, really did not like that
Like
because
with Batman versus Superman.
oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, no, that's
I
not
really,
Doomsday.
really
That's an
didn't like
abomination.
that because this storyline's good. So if you read the comic books and you watch the animated version that they have of the Reign of Superman and that whole part with Doomsday, so that's just like the comics. And
Yeah,
of course,
that
there's
was
things
really
that are
well
kind
done.
of brought in. It was really well done. So same thing here. You look at it and you say, okay, well, I've got Nolan's films with Batman Begins and all that, and you get to Dark Knight Rises, and I've got this Bane character, but he is not the Bane.
No,
that you're seeing
he's
from the
not the
comics.
Bane from the comics, and as similar as he can be, yes, like I said, his goal was to take over Gotham and break Batman. That was his goal, and he succeeded, sure, but the story is still not Knightfall. It's
No.
still not. We are, and that would be an impossible story to tell on the big screen in live action, because you would have to still include, you've got all of these
Arkham.
villains that show up in the first half of the storyline.
Now, if Marvel was doing it, you could do it. You could, because they have enough forethought to be able to set up movies and have enough things that you could culminate into both a Death of Superman and a Knightfall scenario on the live screen. But because it's not Marvel that's running it, because it's a separate comic book series and company, but DC lacks the ability and lacks the corporate backing to be able to make something like that happen. But you're absolutely right, Aaron. If they did an animated version, then they could pull it off just like they did with the Reign of the Superman.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, you can animate any characters you want. You don't have to like hire a big name to play the Joker, who doesn't have a big role in Knightfall.
Right.
He's there.
Right.
Scarecrow doesn't have a big role. None of the classic Batman villains have huge roles to play in Knightfall. But
Right.
you're going to expect them to be played by big actors.
Right.
But big actors aren't going to want to show up. Oh, I'm in like 3 scenes as the Joker. No one's going to want to play that.
No, nobody's going to do that. And I think though that it would be an excellent film to put out animated.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it could be a 3-parter. Now, like we've talked about before, and we did this with our other one. Sorry, let me get my books here. Which the Superman one I was mentioning before. This book, Batman Knightfall, written by Dennis O'Neil. And he also wrote didn't he also write the Superman one? Who wrote the Superman one?
Alan Grant.
Oh, Alan Grant. I'm sorry. But this book is an excellent book. And it's not long. I mean, we're talking 300 something pages, 350 pages. But it's a novelized version of all of this. And if you get a chance, you can look on Amazon and find it. But it's Batman Knightfall by Dennis O'Neil. And it's
pretty good.
An excellent read. Whether you have read the comic books, it's nostalgic. If you haven't, it's like you're in that world, and it's a great novel. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, it was a pretty good adaptation. I was gonna say something, now I lost it. Dang it. This is what happens when you get old.
And you have a cousin with run-on sentences.
What's a run-on sentence? Oh, you didn't use any commas.
Well, I just kept talking until I was done.
Yeah.
I think
good
You got
story.
some trivia for me?
Don't. Sorry. I mean, I can make some stuff up if you want me to.
I could do some trivia to you.
All right, bring it.
Hold on.
I'm
Hold on.
holding.
All right. Hold on. All right. What was let's do some let me do this here. Okay. Oh, you already said that I am nothing. All right, hold on. What was gosh, you already said so much of this stuff that I'm looking at the data for. I don't know if I have any good trivia for you. You're just so smart already. I don't know if I have anything.
I know. It's a curse. What's the first part of the new suit that Jean-Paul Valley designs and creates?
Gloves.
The gauntlets, yeah.
The gauntlets. Yeah, no, I got that one down. Yeah.
Okay.
What's one element beyond the gauntlets and the mechanized suit? What's another feature that he had with his suit?
Like he shot batarangs out of the gauntlets.
Absolutely, but they were sharp tip
Yeah.
batarangs.
Yeah.
All right. And the other one was a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going a little too far with that. Getting a little getting a little lethal with your weapons there, Batman. Going against your rules.
Here's the trivia. Did once Bruce Wayne came back as Batman finally at the end, did Commissioner Gordon trust him?
No. Because again, that's Gordon doesn't know who's under the mask. And for all he knows, it's been the same person the entire time. And so you had this period of time when Batman was going psycho, and it's not like Bruce comes back and be like, hey, been gone for a while. No, you weren't. You were here and you were killing people. That's not cool.
Here's another one. All right. So post Night's End, there was a story arc where Batman was in his new suit, Bruce Wayne in his new suit. He kind of went on and put the Kevlar and had a kind of a whole new suit kind of created for himself, still looking the same as Batman. But what was it inspired by?
The Michael Keaton suit.
Yes, Tim Burton's Michael Keaton suit for Batman. Do you happen to know?
Bulletproof.
Right. And what was the story arc called that proceeded after? And here's a hint. It is the Russian name for 3.
Troika.
Troika. Very good. Very good. So there you go.
But before that was Prodigal.
Prodigal,
And
that's right.
Dick Grayson took over as Batman temporarily.
Temporarily, yeah. Yeah. That
should have been him the whole time.
That's true. Should have been you. It should have been you. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember you and I joking about
Bruce Wayne could have saved your family, he would have.
Do you remember Chris O'Donnell and Batman and Robin saying,
yeah,
it should have been you. It should have been
I don't understand. I still don't understand why they cast a 28-year-old to play, what was he, 19?
Why was he so popular?
And why did he have to go? Like, what? This kid is an adult, all right? This is he. Yes, he's young, but why does he need to go live with Bruce Wayne after his parents died? He's a grown man. Let him go live on his own.
There was a lot of fanfare about Chris O'Donnell at the time.
I don't know, but this is why if they introduce Robin in the new, Pattinson Batman universe, it needs to be a kid.
Yeah,
no older than 13 years old.
You said that, and you're right. You're right. So I know that just kind of round this out. I know we talked about this last time, but I just want to say again, just how since we're talking about Batman, Kevin Conroy's passing, the voice of Batman. He was the voice of Batman for Batman the Animated Series. So, during the 90s, we'd come home from school, we'd have Batman the Animated Series, and you'd have Kevin Conroy voice Batman, and he's still in my ear. and he died just this past week. And you know, he is absolutely forever in our hearts as the voice of Batman. He is Batman.
Yeah, rereading these issues of Knightfall just to kind of remind myself of the story beats. Of course, every time, you know, Batman has a speech bubble, I'm hearing Conroy's voice in my head.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? He's got that voice. Do your impression again.
What impression?
That's the one. Well, gee, and you saw Mark Hamill's post. I saw this post about where it was Batman showed up to Commissioner Gordon, and Gordon's like, "You're not talking." And
Oh yeah,
you right, he pulls out
there's a
a belt of
note that says
paper.
he lost his
He
voice
lost his voice
forever.
forever.
Oh,
He says, "I'm so," and he says, and Commissioner Gordon says, "I'm so sorry." And then Batman says, "I am too." And he's got this sad expression. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. It was just a little something, I guess one of them put out, but you know, from DC. But man,
I don't know. It could be, yeah. Who knows who put that art together? But it was really
but
really
Mark
well
Hamill
done.
had forwarded it on. Mark
Yeah.
Hamill, as we had said in our last post or our last
I mean, it may very well have been Bruce Timm that drew it and put it together.
Mark Hamill is the voice of Joker. You know him as Luke Skywalker, but he is
Luke who?
he is, to me, I think at this point in my life, far more the Joker than he is Luke Skywalker, even though I'm a super Star Wars fan.
I mean, he has played the Joker a lot more than he's played Luke.
His voices are just incredible. But man, what a great story arc. Love it. I'm so glad we got to talk about this tonight.
All right. Before we end things, we do have an answer to a question from Spotify from our episode a couple weeks back on Labyrinth.
Oh, great.
We posed the question, what other 80s cult classics should we do a deep dive into? And our good friend Ferris McFly, aka Noah, sorry, I hope we're not giving away your alias there, buddy. He said The Princess Bride, The Outsiders, Karate Kid, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Bill and Ted. I know some of these aren't cult classics. I just want to hear you talk about them. So he's given us a list of movies he would love for us to talk about. And you know what? Maybe we'll be able to get around to those. We've got some plans for the weeks ahead coming up through the new year.
I think a good Princess Bride would be well worth it.
Oh
if
gosh,
you do something like
Princess
Labyrinth
Bride every day.
I mean, seriously. I mean, you got to do Princess Bride at some point. I think that should be on the spring list.
Yeah, once we get into the new year, we'll be planning out some more episodes.
Inconceivable.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
I do a lot on this post.
You do. What was it a couple weeks ago? Oh, we were talking about Justice Society.
You don't have to bring this up because we have a different understanding of aristocracy.
No, you were misinterpreting the definition of aristocracy.
We don't need to do this.
You keep using this word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Man.
All right. So next week we're going to get nostalgic. We are going to share our memories of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh, who remembers their Super Nintendo? Come on. Oh my gosh.
I'm
so exciting when that came out.
Fire up some Super Mario World, some Super Metroid, some other games with the word super in the title.
Look, Super Metroid. Oh, I think it's still to this day my favorite game ever.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we'll have to get into it next week, but Super Metroid, best game of all time.
Ever.
All right, so join us next week for that. Again, if you are enjoying what you're hearing here at the Show, please share it with your friends. Tell everybody about it. We would love to hear from you. Join in the conversation. Have you had a chance to read the old comic books? And are you familiar with the Knightfall story? What did you think of it? Did it break your heart when Batman's bat got broken? I don't think I could say that sentence again.
Did you rehearse that?
I didn't. That just on the fly, but it didn't come out right. It was awful. This is why we have rehearsals, and we don't rehearse anything. So
should have rehearsal.
Everything we say is on the fly here at the Show. Landon, anything else you want to share today?
No, as we put this out, we're about to get into Thanksgiving week, and so I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Extremely
Tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
For many things, including my family, but also you, Aaron. I'm thankful for you, buddy.
You know what I'm thankful for?
You should say me, because it's the nice thing to say.
I was going to say the end button on this Zoom call.
Oh, but listen to this. I knew this was going to happen.
No, I'm kidding. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful that we are able to do this kind of thing. I mean, it's funny. It was inconceivable years ago to think that we'd be able to like have face-to-face conversations 2 states away.
Not just at Christmas at the table.
Not just at Christmas when we get together once a year to talk about the things we haven't been able to talk about for an entire year, but now we get together weekly. It's great. Technology is amazing. What a world to live in.
The funny
time to be alive.
The funny thing is too, we've always said we could probably talk endlessly about these things or whatever we talk about. And now at this point, after 30 something podcasts, I'm kind of like, we really do have an endless supply of stupid stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, we do. There is no shortage of pop culture. Let me tell you.
And opinions.
All right. What?
And opinions, for that matter.
Opinions.
No shortage of opinions.
No shortage of opinions.
All right, say your famous words.
Your famous words. Oh, wait. All right. Well, again, thank you for listening and have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.
Bye, everybody.